In this video, I'm going to show you a demonstration of how to install the snap toggle and the similar styles such as the flip toggle and compare them to the old school toggle bolts. These toggle bolts have been around for a while. The larger one, the 1/4 inch one, can hold 90 pounds shear weight. That's the force going down a wall. In other words, if you're going to hang a heavy mirror, hang anything at all, that weight pulling down is the shear weight, as opposed to the tension or pull out. If something's pulling away from the wall, that's the pull out or tension. The smaller one, the 1/8 inch, is smaller, as you can see. The pros for that one is it only requires a 3/8 inch hole in the wall, much smaller hole than the 1/2 inch hole, or technically more. It's actually technically a little bit wider than a 1/2 inch, but you can shove it through a gypsum drywall, and you need a 1/2 inch hole for the larger toggle bolts. That is one drawback for these flip and snap toggles. They do require a 1/2 inch hole, but assuming that you're putting something very heavy on the wall, I'm sure you wouldn't mind. You wouldn't use these to hang small pictures or something like that, but you would use them when you can't find a stud, or if the location of what you're putting up is not near a stud, then you would use these to hold on to the back of the drywall, and the bolt will then connect. It'll hold whatever you're hanging up against the front side of the drywall, and the bolt will then connect metal to metal through the back, which holds tight to the wall. If this were a hollow block, like a cinder block, then this will actually hold hundreds of pounds before it fails. The ratings for these differ a little bit. For some reason, this one, this particular brand, this is the flip toggle, so this can hold up to about, I think it's 130 something pounds in 1/2 inch drywall, and the flip toggle boasts almost twice that, over 200 pounds. So I'm not really sure why there's so much of a difference. They seem to be similar, as you can see, in style. They both have a metal part that the bolt will then be driven into. They both have a plastic flange which is pushed up against the drywall. That's not actually going to be holding the item to the wall, but rather allowing for the bolt to go through the center of the flange and then into the metal, which is actually going to be holding it. That is a vast improvement over the old school toggle bolts, because when you have a hole, as you can see, the 1/2 inch hole, this bolt, after the toggle is on the other side, the bolt is then kind of floating free anywhere in the center of the hole. Of course, it'll be tight, whatever, if you have a washer, whatever's holding, it'll be tight against the wall. But if you're looking for accuracy, when you have a flange with the hole in the exact center, then this is the better way to go. Of course, these are much more expensive, depending on if you buy it in bulk, $1 or $2 or so a piece, versus just, a few cents for these ones. You can get a pack of 6 of them or 8 of them for a few dollars, depending on where you're shopping. But here's very simple. First, I'll show you the toggle bolts. The way it works is you tighten it Okay, whatever you're putting up against the wall, you're going to have already. You can just screw this, unscrew this. I'll show you. And whatever it is, then you're going to put the bolt through that, whether it be a shelf bracket, or in this case, this is a picture hanging hook, or it could be any kind of bracket, anything. Even a TV mount. If you're going to use this for a TV mount, I don't recommend using these old school ones. As I said, the weight rating is much higher, and even if you do that, for whatever reason, if it's a aesthetic reason, for instance, the studs aren't exactly where you're going to put them, you have a flat TV mount that has to go exactly where you want it for whatever reason, then you can use these with a much higher weight rating. But if you're putting something up 70 pounds, if this hook can even hang 70 pounds, let's say it's a 30-pound mirror or something, you can hang a couple of these up. But anyway, the way it works, you push it through the drywall and it springs up. This is the same if this were plaster and lath. Imagine, if you will, this is plastered over wooden lath, and then in the back you have what's called the keys, where the plaster is sticking out of the wooden laths, the spaces in between. That's going to be a little bit thicker. So if you do have a plaster and lath wall and you want to use these old school toggle bolts, you're going to need a larger. I would use a 3-inch bolt, because remember, you have a 3.5-inch cavity in the hollow wall back here, so you'll have plenty of space. But if you use using a bolt that's too short, you have to push it all the way through. And as you can see, if this was only a little bit thicker, then this would just stay stuck. You can thread it all the way to the end. But the point is, get a longer bolt, and then you'll ensure you drill a hole. Of course, if you're using plaster, you put tape over the front so it doesn't shatter. Drill your 3/8-inch hole all the way through, and then whether it's plaster or the wooden laths, doesn't matter. You'll push the toggle bolt all the way through, it'll spring open. And then in either plaster, or if this is cinder block, or drywall, whatever it is, and then what'll happen is you'll pull it tight, and then you'll tighten the bolt. Otherwise it'll just spin. So you have to pull it tight to the back, and then you'll pull whatever it is, again, a shelf bracket, whatever, pull it towards you, and then you either use a screwdriver or something electric, and then as you're pulling, it'll get tighter and tighter until you realize that it's tight. Now, if you just have a washer over something, for instance, I was putting the closet organizer and it was just a vertical rod, so I had to pull the toggle bolts toward me, and something like this can be helpful because it can go under the bolt, and then as you're pulling with your left hand, then you can tighten. Otherwise it's kind of difficult to grab a hold of the bolt. So that's one tip. Here I have a 3/8-inch hole, and I'm going to install the old school toggle bolt simply by pushing it in. Then, as you can see, the toggle is in the back of the wall. It's loose in the cavity, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this towards me. As you can see, now it's tight. And as I'm holding this, then I'm going to tighten the bolt. In this case, I'll use electric. You can see the bolt going through the toggle as it's getting tighter to the wall. As I'm pulling it, Now that's tight, and that's going to hold 70 pounds. As you can see, that's tight. So a drawback to this is if you take it off, you're going to lose that toggle behind the wall. I'll show you this. And then you would have lost this behind the wall. The pro to one of these is that you can reuse the bolt. The actual toggle behind the wall you can't remove because the strap will be broken off. You can't reuse that, but you can reuse the bolt. The major pro is that you can get these up on the wall. So then you can put whatever you're putting up on the wall, say a TV mount, up to the flange, and then you put the bolt through whatever you're putting in, for instance the TV mount, and then you'll be able to get this exactly in the center. Whereas if you were using these, you would have to, it would be very cumbersome. You have to carefully push through each one, and then they're kind of floating in the hole, and then it might not be level. Now you have a 1/2 inch, and these work similar. What you do with this one is you can just pull, this is the snap toggle, you pull it like that, and then you push it through the 1/2 inch hole, and then it'll pull back like this, and then you push the flange, snap it off, and then you'll have your bolt. This is the flip toggle, and it's a similar way. This only has one strap, one thing to hold on to, but the way it works is after you push it through, this little part here will catch and it will pull like that. As you can see, this is a 1/2 inch hole. I'm going to push this through. Again, you can use this in plaster and lath as well. It'll just be a 1/2 inch hole bored through the wood, the plaster, whatever it may be. You'll have the smooth 1/2 inch hole, and then whatever's behind here, this part, it will catch that. And this one, the snap toggle is a little easier because you push it through the hole, and all you have to do is pull that like that, and this can turn behind the wall. Then you'll know this is ready to catch behind the wall. With this one, it's not very difficult. It's just a little different. You push it, and this part will catch. And then there you go. As you can see, this is tight against the back of the wall, whether this will be a cinder block with a 1/2 inch hole through it, 5/8 inch drywall, 1/2 inch drywall, or plaster and lath. All of these could use any of that material. And then whatever you're putting up against the wall, you don't have to put it up yet. Whereas with the toggle bolts, you would have to thread this through and then push it through the hole. With either of the flip toggles, you push it up, and then what you'll do is you'll push the flange all the way up. And of course you won't be holding the back, you'll just see this, but you push it through that hole, pull it all the way tight, and then you push the flange as far as it can go. And it might be a little bit not entirely perfectly flush, but it doesn't matter because once you get this off, and this snaps off, once you get this off, this is what you'll see on the wall, and it's up there for good. And then this is tight against the back of the wall because of the plastic flange, but it will be actually holding up once it gets in, once the bolt threads through the back of this part here. So if this is a shelf bracket, whatever it may be, you don't have to pull it like the toggle bolt. You can simply hold it up against the wall, level it, whatever you're doing, if this is a shelf or something, and then of course then you tighten your bolt. As I tighten that, pressed up against that flange, up against the wall, pulled this tight. I'm going to say over 100 pounds each. If you're going to put up a TV mount, you'll use 4 of them if you can. I wouldn't trust only 2 of them for not only a heavy TV but an expensive TV. Now if you were putting these up on metal studs, that would be preferable. Any kind of stud, lag bolt through a stud, would be preferable to just using one of these on drywall to mount a TV. But you could, if there was a metal stud back here, you'll drill through the drywall, and then you'll use a step drill to drill a 1/2 inch hole, and then same thing. You'll push this through the drywall and the 1/2 inch hole in the metal stud, pull it like this, it'll catch on the back of the metal, and then it'll be up on the metal stud and it'll never fall. And then easy to remove the bolt. And then you can take off whatever you put up on the wall. You'll be left with this. You can cut that with a razor blade to try to get it flush to the wall and then put wall patch over it. But this will not be able to be moved or reused again. But it will stay up here in this particular spot in the wall. Then you'll always have a place to put whatever it is you're going to put up. So that's it, depending on your budget, because these are much more expensive. If you have a whole bunch of things and you don't want to spend too much money on them, and you don't need the accuracy, if you don't need the accuracy of being exactly in the center of the hole, and you only need up to 70 pounds, you can use this. This is up to 90 pounds. I would recommend, especially if you have a plaster wall, to get a long bolt, 3-inch bolt. Either the flip toggle or the snap toggle can be used in any of those materials I talked about. The plaster, the drywall, even if it's 5/8 inch drywall, 1/2 inch, and you can put it even in a hollow block. Same thing. So these can hold, I would say, over 100 pounds each. This one says over 200 pounds shear weight. They also have the pull-out strength for these. These they don't even seem to bother. They just list the shear weight on these. Even though these kind of things come in a package of plant hangers and things like that, they don't recommend these in the ceiling. But I don't see why you couldn't use this in the ceiling. But of course, you're going to want to screw into the joist into wood material is preferable. So there you have it. Please subscribe and like the video if this was helpful, and we'll see you next time.